This lovely manhwa is titled How to Save the Time-Limited Young Master. If you love stories like this, please like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next episode. Will you save a psychopath who has a limited time to live? Yeah or nah? Anyway, that's the situation Halais is in. Halais visited the young master and said she was glad he was feeling better. Genon laughed while sitting on the bed, a very soft expression on his face. He told her she was really kind to come and see him. When he noticed how sad she looked, he called out to her and asked if she was all right, or if something had happened. She forced a smile and said she was just happy to see that he was recovering faster than she thought. She then brought out a flower bouquet and handed it to him, saying it was a gift. Genon held it with a smile and asked if today was some kind of special occasion. Halais's expression darkened again. She told him she had come to say goodbye. Genon froze at once. He got up from the bed and walked toward her, asking what she meant. She begged him to calm down, but he stepped closer and said he was calm, though nothing about him looked calm. Halais finally opened up. She said she had thought everything through and truly believed it was time for her to walk her own path. "I can't stay here forever as your companion," she said. Genon's expression turned dark. He asked if she really thought his uncle would let her leave after she saved him, the eldest of the Lionelic family. He told her clearly that if she left his side, she would eventually die. Halais held herself together and said she had enough strength to protect herself. Genon shouted back, saying her strength was not something she could control whenever she wanted. Halais shouted back at him, asking what he expected her to do. "How can you say such a thing? Whose fault do you think this is?" Her fists tightly clenched in anger. Genon's expression softened. He told her he could protect her. All she had to do was stay by his side. He gently grabbed her hands, trying to convince her in a soft, almost romantic way. She was reincarnated into this novel, and at first she thought she would be a minor or ordinary character just like everyone else. But things did not turn out that way. The person she reincarnated as was Halais Lorca, the only daughter of Viscount Lorca, a man with vast wealth. Halais was showered with love by her parents and lived a cherished life in a privileged environment. Life was peaceful, as there was no conniving villainess to bully her and no tyrannical head of the family to control her. Since there was no romance with the main lead, it meant she was only a side character in this world, or so she believed. That was exactly how she thought until everything changed that very day. Her father suddenly called out to her from downstairs. "Father, what's the matter?" she asked calmly. He smiled and asked if she would like to talk for a bit. The moment she saw that gentle expression, she felt uneasy. It was unusual, and a bad feeling crept into her chest. She tried to avoid him by saying she had lessons to attend, but he told her there were no lessons today because she was coming with him. At that moment, she knew it was over. Her father then told her instead of going to embroidery lessons every week, she would be meeting a new friend. "Isn't that great?" he asked with a smile. Halais thought to herself, "A friend?" So she asked if he meant she would be getting a playmate. Playmates may seem like simple socializing and bonding on the surface, but among nobles, it is really about strengthening alliances between heirs in preparation for future political interests. Halais never thought this would apply to a small family like hers. "Who am I supposed to meet? The Marquis of Zibin? The Duke of Dolven?" she asked. Her father then asked if she had forgotten the family they served. That could only mean one thing. She was meeting the Duke of Lionelic. Halais thought to herself that she believed the heir of that family had been imprisoned. Her father turned away and told her to follow him at once, as the carriage was already prepared. Halais was too shocked to speak. She could not believe they were leaving right now. She got into the carriage and complained that there was no way she could go dressed like this. She was only wearing these clothes because she had been going to her embroidery lessons. "The young master isn't someone who minds any of the things you're complaining about," her father said. She shouted back that she minded. Halais thought to herself that first impressions were all about appearance. If he saw her like this, he would think she was some sloppy girl. Panic suddenly filled her mind. What if this was a turning point? She did not even know what kind of novel she had been reincarnated into. She had always believed she was not the main character, but if it was the Duke's heir, then maybe she could at least be sub-main character material, right? If she could get close to him, even if she never became the protagonist, maybe she could still be his friend. And even if that failed, she might at least catch the Duke's eye. Her father noticed the mischievous look on her face and asked what she was thinking about. They finally arrived at the Lionelic estate, Rembo Manor. Helias entered the mansion with her father and was welcomed by the butler. While her father exchanged polite words with him, the young lady took her time to admire the large mansion round her. Her father introduced her to the butler, and she bowed as good manners demanded. Soon after, her father told the butler that he was leaving. Helias could not believe her father was leaving her alone in a stranger's house for 4 full hours. He waved happily as he left, and she could not help thinking how irresponsible he looked. She quietly called herself an idiot for trusting him and coming along in the first place. The butler then asked if they should go see the young master, and of course, she agreed. They headed toward the garden where the young master was said to be. As they walked through the long hallway, Helias thought the mansion felt far too calm. She wondered why her father was in such a hurry to leave. It was almost as if he was running away. Just then, she heard a loud scream and froze. She asked the butler what that sound was, and he calmly replied that the young master was with some friends. Helias wondered if it had truly been a scream or just her imagination. She followed the butler, and when they reached the garden, he called out to the young master, announcing that Lady Lorca had arrived. Helias glanced ahead and froze in shock. The young master was using magic to play with his friends, and it looked extremely dangerous. One boy ran in circles, crying for help, and the sound made Helias's heart sink. The young master used his powers to control the boys, lifting them into the air while the servants simply stood by and watched. "Come on, run around some more. Is that all you've got?" The young master, Genon, said casually as he sat with his legs crossed. Helias was too stunned to speak. She wondered what on earth he was doing. She had heard that he was imprisoned before, so she had planned to be kind to him. But after seeing this, it was clear. He was a psychopath. Genon glanced at her and suddenly released the boys. They fell to the ground with heavy thuds. He then asked if she was Helias Lorca. "So, what do you say? Why don't you join us?" he added, wearing a creepy smile. Helias stood there frozen as he said it looked fun. Genon told her that if she survived until the end, he would give her a treasure box. Since she was joining halfway through, he claimed she even had an advantage. Helias could not believe he was treating people like toys. She thought to herself that this was an absurd way to give a friend a gift. "This is so rude and cheeky," she said. Genon glared at her. The other children were shocked by her words, as she called it an absurd way to give a friend a gift. "Everyone is scared, aren't they?" she asked. Genon asked if she was saying that his way of playing was wrong. "Who do you think you are?" he demanded. Helias told him she could clearly tell the difference between a beast and a human, and that she at least expected him to follow basic manners. "If this is the only way you play, then I will take my leave," she called out to the servants to prepare a carriage. The servants were shocked. One of them said that would be a problem, but she shouted that there was no way she was joining such a game. They tried to calm her down, but she yelled again, saying there was no way she was staying in this house at all. Genon then told the servants to let her go, shocking everyone. When they tried to argue, he glared at them, and they had no choice but to obey. Helias glanced back at him one last time before leaving. Genon laughed mischievously and said she was an interesting girl. On the way back, Helias could not stop thinking about what kind of child he was. "He almost ended their lives at 14, she sighed. The young master had looked completely fine while doing something like that. Helias looked down at her hands and saw how sweaty they were. Only then did she realize how scared she had been back there. She hoped he hadn't noticed. At that moment, she came to a clear decision. She did not want to be playmates. 1 week later, Helias was in the middle of her embroidery lessons. Her teacher was explaining some basic etiquette when the door suddenly opened. It was her father calling out to her in a sweet way. Helias panicked and quickly called out to him. He then apologized to her teacher and said that today's lesson had come to an end. "I received an invitation from the young master for you to be playmates again," he said. "This time it's just you." Helias froze. Was he really telling her to go back there again? Her father smiled and told her to hurry and get ready. She immediately refused and told him she was not going. He was shocked at once, and Helias felt anger rise inside her. "If you send me to that young master again, I'll tell Mom," she threatened, leaving everyone stunned. Her father tried to stop her from leaving and explained that he had already promised the young master she would come. Helias told him that was his problem to deal with because that young master was not normal. He tried to persuade her, saying that he had not always been like that. "Please think about your daughter, too," she shouted. He calmly replied that he believed in his daughter and told her to remember how wonderful the late Duke had been. The Lionelic Duke family had a boasting reputation, lacking nothing in power or wealth. They were a family of sword mages, producing generations of capable masters of the magical tower. Helias had been saved by the late Duke when she was young, and she was deeply moved by the fact that her father had pledged loyalty to the Duke's family ever since. However, after the Duke died in an unfortunate accident, even though his son, Genon, was left as the sole heir, the Duke's brother, Marquis Belks, took away all of young Genon's rights. The Duke's family was in an unstable situation, but to repay the late Duke's kindness, her father still swore loyalty to the Lionelic family. "You should be able to persuade the young master. After all, you are a child blessed by God," her father said. Helias replied and told him calling her blessed by God was kind of an exaggeration, since she had been picked up at the monastery. "As the heir of your family, you shouldn't speak like that," her father said confidently. He added that the young master did not have much time. Helias was surprised. Genon had been born with the most powerful magical ability among the previous dukes, but his body was so weak that no one knew if he could survive until adulthood. That is why he was currently recovering. Yet, because he misused his magical power, his lifespan was shortened, and his personality grew increasingly twisted. "I hardly have a chance to meet the young master. For the sake of the late Duke who saved you, I hope you can at least meet him once," her father said, playing the pity card. Helias had no choice but to agree. On arriving at the Lionelic Mansion, Helias stood at the gate thinking to herself that she did not want to meet the young master. Surely there must be a good excuse to avoid it. Suddenly, Genon sneaked up behind her. "What are you doing here?" Startled, she turned to him, frowning. "We meet again," he said. She asked why he was outside. He smiled and said he thought she might try to leave without coming in, so he had to come get her himself. They both went inside. Along the way, he told her he was looking forward to seeing the kind of game she would teach him. Helias was surprised. "Are you talking about me?" she asked. "You said the way I play is wrong, didn't you? Then show me the right way to play," he said, smiling. "And if it's boring, he'll have to switch back to his own game." The thought of going back to his game frightened her, and she wondered what that could possibly mean. Helias began with reading books. She took out a book, and he asked, "What is 1001 Nights?" "It's about a queen who told captivating stories for 1,000 nights to escape death at the hands of a tyrant." Just like that queen saved herself, Helias thought she would find a way to escape from this young master. After sharing the first story, she moved on to the next book, The Little Prince. Genon interrupted her immediately. "I'll guess the ending," he said mischievously. "The prince marries the old queen and they live happily ever after, right?" Helias yelled, "Not at all!" She was so annoyed that Genon kept saying her stories were all the same and that the characters were ridiculous. "Ah, that's it. We're done with this game," she yelled. They moved on to the next game. This time, they took pencils. Helias explained that the game was for them to draw each other, but with a twist. They had to make the drawing as opposite as possible to the person's real features. Genon winked and smiled happily. "I've got this." They began. Helias thought to herself that he should just watch her keep a straight face during this game, and she would definitely make him laugh. She winked confidently, pencil in hand. Genon looked at how Helias was staring at him, confused. She thought to herself that she couldn't wait to see the look on his face after this. They had finished the game, and Genon got up, asking to see her drawing. She refused, saying she wanted to see his own first. He didn't hesitate and turned his drawing toward her. She grabbed it with a smirk, thinking she had to save the best for last. But when she actually saw Genon's drawing, her eyes widened in shock. "What do you think?" he asked confidently, standing before her. Genon had drawn her so beautifully that she couldn't stop looking at it. He asked if she liked it. She told him that he had made her look far more beautiful, even though the rules had said otherwise. "Yes, I know," he said. She frowned. "What do you mean?" Genon explained that the rules had been to draw the person's real features in the complete opposite way. That was exactly what he had done, making her look like the opposite of her real self. What? Did he just say that? That she's not beautiful? And this is so funny. Halise grew instantly angry at his teasing. Genon asked to see her drawing, but she couldn't bear to show him hers when he had drawn hers so perfectly. "What's wrong? Don't you want to show it?" he asked. She angrily handed it to him. "Since you want to see it so badly," she snapped. Then she said she was going home and left immediately, leaving Genon wondering why her face was so red. He looked at her drawing of him, and it looked very funny, like something a child would have drawn. 1 week later, it was another meeting day. Just the thought of seeing him again after that embarrassing experience made shivers run down her spine. Just then, she heard her father calling. When she turned, he was smiling, holding the same painting of her from last time. It came from the young master. "Isn't it beautiful?" he asked. For Halise, it was the opposite. She freaked out and demanded that he send it back. Her father asked what she was talking about, saying it was something that should be hung on the wall. "Are you trying to embarrass me?" she yelled. They both dragged the painting without noticing her mother's presence. "It's so gorgeous. Who painted it?" her mother asked. Both of them froze. Before her mother could even settle down, she reported everything to her, unable to believe all this had happened while she was away. Her father was kneeling in the corner, holding the drawing. Her mother asked if she had really agreed to see the young master every week. "I didn't realize it would be risky either," she said. "But don't worry, I'll see it through to the very end to avoid causing trouble for our family." Her mother suggested taking a break from all this for today. Her father freaked out. "Isaac stopped by. Why don't you go see him?" her mother asked, smiling. Isaac was back. Halise was surprised to see him. She wondered if he was still the same Isaac she knew. He had grown so much taller. "How have you been? It's been forever," she said happily. Isaac apologized for leaving without even saying goodbye. They both sat down and began talking. While conversing, he asked if anything had changed while he was gone. Halise panicked a little, wondering how to tell him about the incident with Genon. When she finally did, Isaac freaked out. "A playmate of the Lionelic family and not the daughter of Marquise Belks?" he exclaimed, standing up in surprise. She explained that she had managed to avoid going over there today thanks to his visit, but who knew what they might make her do next? Isaac asked if she wanted him to go with her next time, but it wasn't really a question. He was telling her that he would go. Halise hesitated. She wouldn't want him to get into trouble because of her. "Don't worry," he said confidently. "He's been trained to be an heir, so he can handle the young master on my own." "Really? Then I'll tell them you'll come with me next week," she said, relieved. The next week came quickly. Genon folded his arms and glared. What is he doing here? With all due respect, Halise said she informed him in advance that she'll be introducing a friend today. Genon faked a smile and said he doesn't remember giving her permission to bring anyone. Halise forced a smile, cursing him silently in her mind. That means there's been some sort of mix-up in communication. Isaac stepped forward. "It's an honor to meet you." Genon just stared at him, arms folded, expressionless. Isaac asked if he could accompany Halise in entertaining Genon today. Genon nodded. "He'll decide today's games." Isaac smiled and agreed to whatever he said. Halise felt a strange tension in the air. What are they planning? She wondered. "Shall we get started?" she asked, smiling. Both boys smirked at each other, ready. Halise felt awkward with their seriousness. They decided to go hunting. Halise smiled at first, thinking it was perfect, until she realized they meant a real hunt. Her smile faded. She stared fearfully as both boys mounted their horses. Hunting isn't something kids do for fun, she thought. "Isaac, don't push yourself too hard, okay?" she called out. He told her not to worry. Genon watched both of them with a straight face, and you can sense his discomfort. Her lady stared at him, but he looked away sadly. The trumpet sounded, signaling the start of the hunt. Genon led on horseback, and Halise watched nervously, thinking, nothing should go wrong. I don't see this ending well. Both boys rode their horses and hunted while Halise sat, wondering who she should cheer for, because she couldn't just sit and do nothing. The young master had her father's support, and on the other hand, there was her friend who had come along with her. What would you do in a situation like this? Before she could even conclude, it was announced that they had spotted prey, and the first one to catch it was young Master Genon. "Young Master, you're amazing," Helios cheered, and immediately it was announced that Isaac had caught prey too. Helios cheered for him as well and felt proud that he had at least managed to get one right after Genon. One could see the blush on his face. Just then, an animal stormed from the grasses and ran into Isaac's horse, causing him to fall. Helios called out worriedly, and some guards chased after the animal while others helped Isaac out. "If you hadn't fallen into the bushes, you could have been seriously hurt," she said, worriedly, but he told her he was fine and that she need not worry. Genon stood behind watching them and suddenly left, calling everything boring. Isaac was helped up and noticed Genon leaving. "I've lost this round to him," he said. Helios wondered what was with that attitude. Someone got hurt and he didn't seem to care. She asked if there was a doctor so he could be treated immediately, and the servant promised to call one right away. Isaac told her it was just a minor injury and that it was kind of embarrassing. Helios told him there was nothing to be embarrassed about because an injury is an injury. Isaac looked away, mumbling, "That's not what's embarrassing. Never mind, forget it," he said, frowning. Helios wondered why the young master was pissed and thought about what trouble he might cause next time if they met. She sighed at the thought and began acting up. "My journal," she said, looking around. Isaac was confused, and she told him she had brought one and might have left it in the drawing room. "Let's go get it," Isaac said, but Helios insisted he go get treated, she could go alone. Before leaving, she also added that it might take a while to find, so he should just head home after his treatment. Isaac was worried, but Helios had already left. On the way, a maid asked what kind of journal it was, but she told her not to worry about that, and instead asked where the young master was. "I'm not sure exactly where he went, but when the young master isn't feeling well, he usually goes to the maze in the central garden," she said, pointing. Helios headed there, entering and looking up, wondering if he was really there. The garden entrance looked so beautiful, and she was amazed by the view. She touched the flowers, thinking she had never known the estate had such a breathtaking place. Why didn't he show me this from the start? Immediately, she turned and noticed a magical, fish-like display in front of her. Just as she was watching in amazement, it moved towards her face, and she shut her eyes immediately. When she opened them, she noticed Genon sitting on the waterfall. "What is it? Is he okay?" she asked, with a cold expression calling out to him. She smirked, thinking to herself that he was sulking. She told him her friend was being treated and asked what he was doing here. He told her he was playing alone. "With magic fishes?" she asked. "Do they look like fishes to you?" he replied, adding that it was nothing special, just a mess of mana. "You can really do something like this?" she asked in amazement, and he replied, saying she couldn't believe a weak and ill-tempered young master like him could do something like this, right? She chuckled, saying that was not at all what she was thinking. Rather, she thought to herself, other kids would look up to her if he saw this. "Why would you use such an amazing power just to scare people?" she asked, and he replied that he wasn't scaring anyone, just playing. She told him that if he shared this beautiful part of his magic, he would really get along with his friends. Genon grew saddened, asking, "What about you?" She wondered what he meant, and he explained, "Aren't we looking at this together? Do you think you and I have gotten closer?" She hesitated, then smiled happily, saying, "Of course we have." She asked why they didn't start off like this. She told him the sun was already setting and that time really flies. "Yes, it felt quick to me too," he said, and she smiled, saying it was rare for them to feel the same way about something. That day, it felt like she had managed to open the door to Genon's heart. At least a little. Until the next meeting day came. Elise was shocked when she received the message that the young master was refusing her visit. Why? Could something be wrong? Or did he feel she was getting too close to him? Meanwhile, someone had picked up a note, written in ancient language. It was an order to assassinate Count Gott. A few hours earlier, Helisa's mother had asked if she was going to visit the young master today. She had said yes. Her mother smiled, thinking they seemed to have grown close, but smiled even more to herself, knowing it wasn't as much as her mom thought. Now that was how she left the house. But upon arriving at Rembo Manor, she was told that the young master was refusing her visit. Her carriage raider suggested they head back, but Helise refused. She insisted that she must see the young master at all costs. "If the carriage stays here, it'll raise suspicion," she said. She ordered him to go back without her. The raider grew scared. "Whatever you're thinking is dangerous," he warned. "You expect me to just turn around and go home after being turned away like this?" she yelled. Her anger made the raider tremble. Ignoring him, Helise walked away and began climbing the fence, cursing at the servant who had doubted she could scale a wall. As she tried, she realized that at 14, her arms were quite short. She, obviously not pleased, said he shouldn't underestimate her. After all, she had been training with knights since she was young, she muttered. Helise jumped from an angle and with a burst of effort climbed to the top. "Piece of cake," she called out, proud of her achievement. She quickly glanced into the manor and saw servants shouting her name. "Wherever she is, she shouldn't be here. She should go home," the servants whispered amongst themselves. "Isn't the Viscount's daughter allowed in the estate? She's supposed to be the young master's playmate," one said. The other replied that he was just told to send her back today. They searched the manor, confident it wouldn't be long before they found her. Halise tried to find another route, crawling silently, but she bumped into someone. Her head hurts as she looks up. It was a maid. Panic ran through her, and she shut her eyes, thinking how unlucky she was to run into a maid in a place like this. The maid smiled, telling her not to worry and to follow her. Her lady couldn't believe the maid was actually here to help. Thanks to the maid, Halise was able to get into the mansion without any trouble. As she reached the door, she thought to herself, the young master must be here. She opened it and stepped inside, calling out to him, but immediately froze at the humid smell of the room, heavy with water plants. "Young master, it's me, Halise Lorca," she said, her eyes widening at the sight of Genon lying on the bed looking pale. Panic gripped her as she wondered what was wrong. He grunted in response, and she rushed to ask if he was okay. The maid entered just then, saying the young master was awake. Halise explained he had been unconscious but struggling. She touched his forehead and felt the heat. He was burning. Turning to the maid, she asked if he was unwell. The maid explained it started this morning. Halise asked why she wasn't told earlier. "The young master was looking forward to your visit, but he fell ill at the last minute." Halise thought to herself, "He's such a proud person. He probably didn't want me to see him this week." Then she wondered why he wasn't using magical treatment. He should be using healing magic. Genon opened his eyes and saw her. He told her to leave, but she asked if he recognized her. "It's me, Halise," she said softly. He held her hand, saying he knew. He looked at her sadly, insisting she should leave, yet she maintained eye contact. He was still holding her hand as he repeated it. Suddenly, he fell asleep again. You could see he was truly in bad shape. Feeling sad, she turned to the maid. "I want to stay with him for a while," she said. The maid hesitated. It was time for her to go back home, but seeing how tightly the young master held her hands, allowed her to stay and brought a chair for her to sit next to him. Halise sat quietly, and sunlight streamed through the window. Slowly, she grew drowsy and eventually fell asleep, her head resting on him. In her dream, a strange man appeared holding something purple, like a heart. Just as she asked what it was, the man glared at her. "I'll make sure both you and the young master disappear." Halise woke up immediately, finding herself back in her room. She wondered how she got there. She had just been at the Lionelic estate. The door opened, and her father walked in. "You're awake," he said. "I came because I heard you've been asleep for an entire day. Did something happen?" "An entire day? That's strange," she thought. "You were taking care of the young master, right?" he asked, sitting beside her. Halise tried to make sense of it. She didn't remember returning home, yet she somehow had slept through an entire day. Her father sighed. "It's obvious that now you know the young master's condition isn't good." "Yes, but the way the Lionelic family handles things is strange," she complained. "They didn't use healing magic, only conventional treatment." "There's a reason for that," her father said solemnly. Halise's heart sank. What reason could that be? "The young master, he's been given a terminal prognosis," he said sadly. Halise asked her father if the young master was aware of his condition and how that had anything to do with his treatment. "Are you saying he should just give up because healing magic won't work?" she asked. Her father explained, "It would be best. His body can't handle the mana anymore. If he receives more, it could make things worse." Hearing this, Halise remembered enjoying Genon's magic last time, and a thought struck her. She shouted, "The young master used his mana for me on Monday, the day before he collapsed." She panicked. Her father asked if it was really true. She said it could be because of her suffering. "He always pretended he was fine the day after he used mana," her father said gently. "So you could say it's your fault he used it anyway. He's probably lonely deep down." Her father suggested that she become friends with the young master soon, and she agreed. "He's been risking his life every time he hangs out. What a fool," she thought. Her father smiled. "I'll get medicine for you from the steward since you've been asleep too long." "There's no need. I've rested enough." Then she remembered having a dream before waking up, but she couldn't recall what it was about. She decided to let it go. It must not have been important if she forgot. It was Friday. In Rembo Manor, Genon lay on his bed thinking to himself, "Halise is probably mad at me and won't show up today." Just then, there was a knock at the door. He turned, and the butler announced from outside, "Lady Lorca has arrived." Genon jumped up in shock and excitement. The butler added that they had thought she wouldn't come. But why wouldn't I be here? Helene asked herself. Their conversation was suddenly interrupted by a noise from Genon's room, and they stood stunned. Helene asked if he was still unwell. The butler confirmed that he was. Immediately, the door handle twisted, and Genon opened the door. "You actually came?" he asked. Helene noticed his hair and ears and smiled warmly at him. She touched his ears happily. "Did you just wake up?" she asked, leaving the poor boy stunned. He hadn't expected that. He pushed her hands away, and she chuckled. "Why are you surprised to see me?" "I'm not surprised," he yelled. The butler cleared his throat. "I'll be leaving now," he said, clearly unaware that Genon was still standing there. Helene asked the butler to help her bring what she had asked him to prepare, and he agreed. Genon remained surprised by her sudden closeness. She served him a bowl of soup. "What is this?" he asked. "It's apple soup I used to drink whenever I was sick as a child," she said excitedly. "I had your chef make it for you." Genon glared at the chef. "Why did you agree to this?" "He's not feeling well," Helene explained. "If he takes this, he'll feel better in no time." He thanked her and took a spoonful, but his expression immediately changed when the soup touched his tongue. "Not to your taste?" she panicked. Genon told her it tasted like toothpaste, and she explained it was because of the mint in it. "It feels like I'm brushing my teeth," he complained. She thought to herself, that didn't stop him from eating it, though. Helene told him that if he didn't like it, he should just stop taking it. He yelled, "Who said I didn't like it?" Her lady asked why he sent her away on Wednesday, and he reminded her that she had barged in. "I'm sorry. I didn't know you were suffering because of the magic. I'm really sorry," she apologized, her voice heavy with sadness. Genon sighed. "It's not like avoiding magic would make me live longer." She reminded him that it increased his pain. He went silent for a moment, then suddenly asked, "You heard about it, didn't you? I don't have much time left. Rather than holding back my powers just to live a few extra months, I'd rather use them as much as I want and live freely." His voice was sad. Helene felt a pang of sadness herself. She sighed and told him not to visit her, at least for a few days after he used magic. "No, I won't," she shouted, leaving him confused. She leaned closer and asked, "For how long have you been suffering like this?" "I don't remember," he said. She asked where exactly he felt the pain. Genon smirked. "Are you going to cure it?" She replied confidently, "I might." He called her a big mouth. Helene nagged, saying he kept too many secrets and should at least tell her when he was hurting. "Call me Geno," he said suddenly. She was confused. "Am I your nanny or something? Why do you keep addressing me so formally? Talk to me like I talk to you." Helene was speechless for a moment. Then a wave of sadness hit her. She whispered that she regretted falling asleep that day and leaving him alone. Genon's eyes widened in shock. He looked away, cheeks red, and muttered, calling her a fool. She wondered why he was cursing, then leaned very close to him, her voice serious. Genon went numb. Seeing her so close, he felt his heart beating fast and couldn't understand why. Helene asked Genon where it hurt the most when using magic. Just then, she was surprised to see his face all red. She asked if he was having a fever again, but he looked away, complaining that the room was stuffy. Thinking to himself, why is she curious about that? He knew if he didn't tell her where it hurt, she wouldn't go home today. Genon told Helene the place that hurt was his heart. "Your heart?" she asked in surprise. He touched the area and explained, "Whenever I use mana, I feel a pain like something is crushing my heart." Her lady asked if it was some kind of heart disease. He replied that he didn't know. The doctor said nothing was abnormal. Helene asked if it only happened when he used mana, and he decided to give her a full explanation. "We are a family of mages, and for generations we have produced capable masters of magical towers. The magical power possessed by the head of the family represents the power of the Lionelic family, and the head of the family now is me. So every time I use magic, I end up like this," he said with a smirk. Helene was already worried. She asked if it was some kind of curse. He told her he stayed in this mansion to avoid such things because it was the safest place filled with all kinds of traps. Helene thought to herself, this mansion has protection against magic and curses? It's like a delicately crafted birdcage. Genon smirked and asked if she really believed all that about being cursed. "Don't jump to conclusions on your own," he said, explaining that his only problem was that his body wasn't compatible with his mana. Halase told him that if that was the case, the previous duke should have left some countermeasures. Genon told her the previous duke had died before leaving anything behind, and he himself didn't even know how to use mana until his parents passed away. Halase said she didn't want to see him suffering anymore. Genon told her he would contact her on a day he wasn't feeling well, so she wouldn't come. "No!" she shouted angrily. Leaving the poor boy confused, Genon yawned and said he wasn't planning on drawing fairy tales or pictures anymore. Halase told him there were plenty of other things they could do. She said there were many fun ways to enjoy themselves without using magic, and he should also stop being mean to the kids who visited him. Genon smiled. "You're the only one who knows how to do that. Does that mean you'll come to see me every day?" he asked. She was surprised, then suddenly smiled. "It's not entirely impossible," she said. She asked if he would join her in her embroidery lessons, and he couldn't believe she had just said that. Helenes chuckled. "Don't worry, there are plenty of ways we can play." Genon laughed. Her lady couldn't help but think to herself that she used to find him an unpleasant young lord, but today he looked like a normal person. Even though his body was weak, keeping him locked in this mansion seemed suspicious. Maybe something else was being hidden. Helenes came back home, and of course her father was there to welcome her. Before he could say anything, she dragged him angrily. "What's wrong?" he asked. "I have something to talk about," she said, locking the door as soon as he stepped in. She blocked him, saying she had a question to ask. He asked if the young lord had told her anything, but she shook her head. Genon hadn't told her anything. Her father was surprised she had become friends with him to the point of being informal. He warned her to use honorifics with the young lord, but she told him that he had approved of her calling him like this. He squeezed in his scoldings, asking her to only use it when they were together as playmates. Helenes told him that wasn't important now. What she wanted to know was why Genon was locked up in the mansion. "Does the young lord think that way?" he asked. Helenes replied, "What do you think instead?" "I don't know. The young lord spends his time in the mansion due to the wishes of Marcus Belks, but from what I see, it seems like a parent's desire to not lose the young lord as well," he explained. Helenes asked if he meant that Genon had been suffering like this from the very beginning. Her father told her that he endured the pain while working to increase the amount of mana he could use. Helenes was saddened, thinking to herself that this was all he could do within the mansion. Count Lorca held her shoulders comfortingly. "He's doing research to find a way to help the young lord get better, so you don't need to worry too much," he said. "By the way, this Saturday is that day," her father reminded her. She wondered what he was talking about, until she remembered. The Saturday he mentioned was a gathering for children. This was a party that had started to trend among the nobility. It was an occasion to gather noble children and assess their future potential. Helenes smiled as she walked around, eating cake. She knew she was just here to listen to everyone brag about themselves. But to her surprise, she noticed that eyes were on her. Just as she wondered what it was about and who they were, she heard them calling her the kid who often visits the Lionelic young lord. A party she thought she'd attend just to enjoy sweets had turned into a place to hear annoying things, and it was all Genon's fault. Halase stomped off, looking for a place to hide where no one would disturb her until the party was over. Just as she tried to hide behind a pillar, she bumped into someone. It was a girl. She quickly apologized for startling her, but when she looked closer, she saw the girl had purple eyes. The girl apologized softly, too. Halase froze, realizing she had just met the main character of the game. After meeting Princess Sienna, Halase realized she was in a nurturing game where you raise a girl who came from the fairy kingdom. The main character was Sienna Salas, captivated by the entire kingdom and becoming a huge phenomenon. In her previous life, Halase had also been captivated by her. That's why she recognized her at first glance. It dawned on Halase that this place wasn't a romance novel, but actually inside a game. Halase couldn't hide her expression. Sienna panicked, wondering if she had said something rude. Halase thought Sienna was cuter in person. Now that she thought about it, she remembered something strange. According to the game, to reach the ending, there were certain conditions. "Sienna Salas, right? I'm Halase Lorca," Halase said, confusing the little girl. She added, asking if Sienna wanted to become a princess. Seeing her bombard questions on their first meeting, Sienna was confused. princess?" she asked. According to the novel, the protagonist regresses after reaching the bad ending. Elise told Sienna to not mind her words, they meant nothing, and turned away wondering if she had rushed things. In the game, the bad ending was the worst. Sienna would meet her death without telling anyone anything, including about herself. Players who reached this ending could start a second playthrough with level 150 stats, which the game called the regression. To reach the princess ending, all stats for evil had to be over 1,000, so the regression was essential. Watching Sienna like this, it was obvious she hadn't fallen into darkness or started a second playthrough yet. Elise had no ambition to follow the typical path to clear the game, but if Sienna reached the bad ending and the entire world reset, what would happen to her? Sienna, watching the young lady behave strangely, was totally confused and didn't know what to do. Elise thought to herself that for the bad ending to happen, Sienna had to incur the Duke's wrath and possess the magical crystal that was his source of energy. At that moment, Elise remembered the dream she had the other day, one she had forgotten. She felt dizzy and almost fell. Sienna held her, asking if she was all right. Elise tried hard to remember the name of the magical crystal, which she was supposed to know. Her eyes widened in shock when she realized the magical crystal was Genon's heart, and that was what his uncle had in that dream. Elise fell to the ground instantly and fainted. Sienna panicked, calling out for help immediately as she held her lady. Helios was too weak, she thought to herself. Genon's heart, before passing out. Helios woke up to the sound of her name being called. Sienna was relieved to see her awake and immediately began crying. "You suddenly fainted! You gave me such a shock!" she exclaimed. Helios got up and looked at Sienna strangely, wondering what her current stats were, since she couldn't see the status window. Sienna wondered what was wrong with her. Who behaves like this on the first meeting? Helios wished she knew the ending they were heading toward. "Did you hit your head when you fainted?" Sienna asked through her tears. Helios didn't respond. Instead, she was quietly glad that the young girl hadn't fallen into darkness yet. Judging by her lack of friends, her social stat must be low, and from all the crying, her stress stat was probably very high. Helios sighed. She had just realized that Sienna's chances of becoming a princess were low, but she confidently concluded that she needed to avoid the bad ending at all costs because that was the only way she could survive. It was another visitation day for Helios. In the carriage, her father reminded her to take good care of the young master. On the way, she wondered if Genon would die from this illness. The magical crystal was designed to react to blood relatives. In other words, Marquise Belks would gain the title of Duke Lionelic if Genon died. With her arms folded, Helios knew that everything would eventually begin when Genon died, but she couldn't bring herself to think about that. She concluded that she needed to save the boy because that was the only way she could survive too. When she arrived at the estate, Helios was shocked to see a black carriage already there. From the crest on the carriage, she could tell who it belonged to. She rushed inside, wondering why he was visiting Genon at this hour. When she reached the young master's door, she met the maid, who was about to inform her that the young master had a visitor. Helios interrupted, saying she already knew because she had seen the carriage. Helios knocked at the door. "Your Grace, it's me. I'm coming in." Before she could even get a reply, she opened the door and Genon was shocked to see her there. "Now's not the time. Stay outside," he said. Marquise Belks turned, asking what was going on. He had a cold and scary expression on his face. Seeing Helios, he asked who the girl was. This is where this part of the story ends. If you love this story and you want us to continue, please comment the protagonist's name, Helios.